Daniel Brooks missed the most important train of his life. At least, that was what he believed at the time. He was 33 years old, unemployed, almost broke, and carrying a folder filled with documents for the biggest job interview he had ever had. The company was in another city. The interview was at 10 a.m. The train left at 6:40. Daniel arrived at the station at 6:43. 3 minutes late. He ran onto the platform just in time to see the train pulling away. For a moment, he stood there completely still. Then the anger came. He cursed under his breath. Kicked the ground. Pressed both hands against his face. 3 minutes. That was all it took. 3 minutes to lose the opportunity he had been waiting for. For months, Daniel had been trying to rebuild his life. He had lost his job after his company closed. His savings were nearly gone. His rent was overdue. His phone was filled with unanswered messages from people he owed money to. And now, because of one missed train, he had lost the only real chance he had left. He sat down on a cold bench and stared at the empty tracks. People moved around him. Coffee cups in their hands. Suitcases rolling behind them. Lives moving forward. Daniel felt like his head stopped. After a while, an elderly man sat beside him. He wore an old brown coat and carried a small black bag. His shoes were polished but worn, like he had taken care of them for many years. He looked at Daniel and said, "Missed it?" Daniel laughed bitterly. "Yeah. I missed it." "Important?" "The most important thing I had." The old man nodded. "Then maybe it wasn't yours." Daniel turned to him. "What does that even mean?" The old man looked toward the tracks. "Sometimes life doesn't take things from us. Sometimes it redirects us." Daniel almost laughed. "That sounds like something people say when they don't know what else to say." The old man smiled. "Maybe." Daniel looked away. "I needed that job." "Did you?" "Yes." "Or did you need a way out?" Daniel froze. The old man's question irritated him because it was too accurate. Daniel didn't want that job because he loved it. He wanted it because he was desperate. Because it looked safe. Because it paid well. Because everyone had told him to be realistic. For years, Daniel had dreamed of opening a small bakery. Not a fancy business. Not a huge company. Just a quiet place that smelled like fresh bread, coffee, cinnamon, and morning light. His grandmother had taught him how to bake when he was a child. Some of his happiest memories were in her kitchen. Flour on the table. Music on the radio. Her hands guiding his. But dreams like that were easy to laugh at. So Daniel buried the idea. He chose office jobs. Stable jobs. Respectable jobs. Jobs that slowly made him feel invisible. The old man looked at him. "What did you really want before the world told you to be practical?" Daniel said nothing. The answer came too quickly. That was how he knew it was true. "A bakery," he whispered. The old man smiled. "There it is." Daniel shook his head. "No. That's not realistic. Neither is spending your life chasing things you don't want and calling it responsibility." The words hit Daniel harder than expected. The old man reached into his bag and pulled out a small paper bag. Inside was a piece of bread. Homemade. Still fragrant. He broke it in half and handed Daniel a piece. Daniel hesitated. Then took it. It was warm. Soft. Simple. Perfect. "My wife used to make bread like this," the old man said. "She wanted to open a bakery too." Daniel looked at him. "Did she?" The old man's smile faded slightly. "No." "Why not?" She waited. Silence settled between them. The station noise seemed to grow distant. She waited until we had more money, the old man continued. Then until the children were older. Then until the mortgage was paid. Then until life was less busy. Daniel looked at the bread in his hand. And then she got sick. The old man's voice remained calm, but Daniel heard the grief underneath it. She died with a notebook full of recipes and a heart full of postponed dreams. Daniel swallowed hard. I'm sorry. The old man nodded. Me too. For a long moment neither of them spoke. Then the old man said something Daniel would never forget. Most people don't lose their dreams because they fail. They lose them because they keep waiting for the perfect time to begin. Daniel stared at the empty tracks. The job interview was already impossible. The train was gone. The old life he had been trying to return to suddenly looked less like salvation and more like a cage. What am I supposed to do? Daniel asked. The old man stood slowly. Start small. Daniel laughed weakly. With what money? With what you have. I have nothing. The old man pointed to the bread. You have memory. Then he picked up his bag. Before walking away, he placed something on the bench beside Daniel. A business card. No company name. No phone number. Only one sentence. Bake one loaf. Daniel looked up. Wait. What's your name? The old man smiled. Someone who waited too long. Then he disappeared into the crowd. Daniel sat there for another hour. He missed the interview. He ignored the calls. Then he went home. His apartment was small and messy. Bills were stacked on the kitchen table. The fridge was almost empty. His future looked uncertain. But for the first time in months, he felt something other than fear. He felt a tiny spark. That evening, Daniel opened his grandmother's old recipe book. The pages were stained with butter, flour, and thyme. He found the first recipe she had ever taught him. Honey oat bread. He didn't have all the ingredients. So he borrowed some. Used what he had. Improvised. The first loaf came out ugly. Too dense. Too dark on one side. Not good enough to sell. But when he tasted it, tears filled his eyes. Because it tasted like home. The next day, he made another loaf. Then another. He gave one to his neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, who lived downstairs. She knocked on his door the next morning. That bread, she said, how much? Daniel blinked. What? How much for one loaf? He almost said it wasn't for sale. Then he remembered the card. Bake one loaf. $5, he said. She bought two. That was Daniel's first sale. $10. It wasn't much. It didn't solve his problems. It didn't pay his rent. It didn't change his life overnight. But it proved something. Someone wanted what he could make. The next week, Daniel baked 6 loaves. Then 12. Then 20. He posted pictures online. At first, nobody cared. Then a few people ordered. Then a local CAF asked if he could supply them on weekends. He said yes before he knew how he would do it. He barely slept. He burned batches. Made mistakes. Dropped trays. Underpriced orders. Overworked himself. There were days he wanted to quit. Days when the money wasn't enough. Days when people ignored his messages. Days when he wondered if he had made the biggest mistake of his life. But every morning, he returned to the dough. Flour. Water. Yeast. Salt. One loaf at a time. 6 months later, Daniel still didn't own a bakery. But he owned a folding table at the Saturday market. He arrived before sunrise and set up under a small white tent. At first, only a few people stopped. Then more. Some came for bread. Some came for cinnamon rolls. Some came because they said his table smelled like childhood. One morning, a little girl tasted a slice of warm bread and smiled. Daniel felt something open in his chest. That smile was worth more than any office promotion he had ever chased. A year after missing the train, Daniel opened a tiny bakery on a quiet street. It was not impressive. The sign was hand-painted. The chairs did not match. The counter was second-hand. The oven was old and temperamental. But every morning, the place filled with the smell of bread. Fresh coffee. Butter. Hope. He named it 3 minutes. People asked why. Daniel would smile and say, because 3 minutes once ruined my life. Then he would pause. And saved it. On opening day, the line stretched outside. Neighbors came. Old friends came. People who had watched him struggle came. Even the company that had scheduled his interview sent an email months later, asking if he was still interested in another position. Daniel never replied. He was too busy baking. Years passed. The bakery became a small part of the city. People celebrated birthdays there. Students studied at the corner table. Couples had first dates by the window. Lonely people came in just to feel warm for a while. And sometimes, when Daniel saw someone sitting alone with tired eyes, he would bring them a free slice of bread. Not because bread fixed everything, but because kindness could remind a person that life was not finished yet. One rainy morning, Daniel noticed a young woman sitting near the window. She was staring at her phone with tears in her eyes. On the table beside her was a folder. A job application. Daniel walked over. Rough day? She looked up and forced a smile. Rough life. Daniel smiled gently. He sat across from her and placed a warm piece of honey oat bread on a napkin. Then he said the words he once needed to hear. That's different. The woman looked confused. Daniel looked out at the rain. A rough day is a chapter. A rough life is the whole book. Don't judge your entire story by the page you're stuck on. She stared at him. For a moment, Daniel saw himself. The station. The missed train. The empty tracks. The old man. The card. Bake 1 loaf. And he finally understood something. Sometimes the worst moment of your life is not the end of the road. Sometimes it is the turn you never would have taken by choice. Daniel never saw the old man again. He searched once. At the station. At nearby cafes. At the market. No one remembered him. Maybe he had been real. Maybe he had been a gift. Maybe he had been life itself, wearing an old brown coat and carrying bread from a dream someone else never lived. Daniel never found out. But he kept the card. He framed it and hung it behind the counter. Bake 1 loaf. People thought it was a business motto. But to Daniel, it meant something deeper. Don't try to rebuild your whole life in one day. Just begin with one honest thing. One small step. One brave decision. 1 loaf. Because life rarely changes when everything goes according to plan. Sometimes it changes when you miss the train. Lose the job. Cry in the station. And finally stop chasing a life that was never meant for you. The truth is, not every closed door is punishment. Not every delay is failure. Not every missed opportunity is a disaster. Sometimes the thing you lose is the thing keeping you from finding yourself. And sometimes, being 3 minutes late is exactly how life makes you arrive on time.